Welcome to the Drive-By Entrepreneur Podcast, which exists to bring current and compelling content to entrepreneurs and influencers of small to mid-sized organizations. I'm John Frank, fellow entrepreneur and the owner of Third Road Management. And with this podcast, we will connect with a variety of experienced and dynamic individuals to shed some light on both the art and science of entrepreneurship. Before we begin, I'd like to thank our sponsors. First, my very own Third Road Management, a company that brings fractional CFO services to small and mid-sized organizations by revolutionizing the CFO suite. We'd also like to thank Two Hound Red, a brewery and restaurant located in Glen Ellen, Illinois, that is focused on creating classic, innovative beer and food. And finally, we'd like to thank NWC Media, which provides inbound marketing technology, project workflow management, and efficiency consulting to organizations of varied sizes, who is also the producer of the Drive-By Entrepreneur Podcast. All right, Kati Kemph, welcome to the Drive-By Entrepreneur Podcast. Honored to have you here and excited to dive into the content.
Looking forward to being here.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll get this out of the way. You and I are longtime friends. First memory is probably sometime in 7th grade at some party, different junior highs.
Yeah.
And then obviously into high school and beyond, and just kind of stayed in touch as fellow entrepreneurs. Been following your journey for a long time, and I know you've been following ours as well. So we've always been good about keeping in touch and collaborating, but I'm really looking forward to diving into your story here, as I think that there's a lot that can be learned from the way that you've conducted yourself in business, which, by the way, 16 years, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's a great milestone and just a testament to the hard work that you've done. But I kind of always start talking about, why another podcast, right? Like, who is this for? And I'll read the mission statement, but to bring current and compelling content to entrepreneurs and influencers of small to mid-sized organizations. So, there's a different podcast out there that's for big companies called How I Built This.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not familiar with that, and I love that. And I love hearing people's stories and how did you get started? What are the things that you dealt with along the way? And I always just love that. And as I started to work with small to mid-sized organizations as well, I'm like, man, those stories are really compelling too. And there's a lot that can be learned from our shared experiences. And so the people that tune in, generally are like, hey, that was an awesome, conversation, took a lot from it. So I know they'll enjoy hearing from you as well.
Okay, great.
All right.
I hope to be very compelling.
Very good. All right. So just a quick intro. You're the founder, obviously owner of Kie Kate Couture out of Elmhurst, Illinois, and have a web presence as well. And we'll get into all that stuff. But that's at a very high level now. But I always like to open the floor. Why don't you take me on your journey as far back as you want to go, like, your upbringing, or start with college or whatever it is. That sort of like tells the narrative story from where you came from to kind of where you are today. And then obviously we'll dig in a little bit about your professional stuff with Kie Kate.
Okay, great. I've done this presentation quite a few times in front of high schoolers. They've asked me to come speak on their career days. So I'll kind of start with what I choose to speak to them about. As you know, I grew up in Itasca, Illinois, same hometown as you, and I am the middle child, 3 kids, and I went away to college at the University of Wisconsin, Madison. My dream was to go to law school and become a child advocate. I'd always had jobs that centered around children, whether it was babysitting, lifeguarding, swimming instructor. I worked in some retail. My parents said I was very strong-willed and had a lot of opinions, and I'd be amazing in law. So that was just sort of my path. I feel like, unlike today, you maybe chose 2 colleges, applied to both, hoped to get into them, and I settled in at Wisconsin-Madison, which I loved. And about halfway through that college experience, I met my now husband, and I started having a shift in my mindset. I stopped thinking about maybe wanting to further my education and go on to law school. I didn't particularly love how much reading college required and just keeping up with that workload, and some other classes that I took that kind of challenged me differently. And I started thinking about teaching. And I think at first I'd thought of teaching as maybe an easier pathway, and I was really in for a big challenge. And I got into the education program at University of Wisconsin-Madison and soared. I fell in love. I got straight A's. I knew that that was my next journey. I could impact 25 kids a year, different from child advocacy in law school, but felt like there was a lot of parallels.
Yep.
I graduated college and got a job in the Barrington Unit School District. I taught first grade for 6 years. And I will remember that first year with 27 kids in my classroom and not an aide, and the challenges of being a brand new teacher. My grass is greener daydream was, I wish I'd been a buyer for Bloomingdale's. I don't know why.
Wow.
I just think fashion was always a passion, and design, but I don't know that I ever cultivated it, even though I'd grown up sewing and doing tons of things. And I definitely loved teaching. I was nominated for a Golden Apple. I got my master's in educational leadership to become a principal or a dean. But during that program, halfway through that program, I realized that I maybe didn't have thick enough skin to be an effective principal. I'm let's call it a recovering people pleaser into my 40s. I really just love everyone around me to be happy and enjoying it. And when you're a principal, I think there's always one group that maybe isn't really happy with you, whether it's the parents or the students or the teachers.
Yep.
So I realized very quickly, even though I love leadership positions, that that wasn't going to be the best fit for me. And shortly thereafter, we had our first child, and I told my husband I was ready for a little bit of a break. And I wanted to stay home, take a sabbatical. I was tenured, and he was like, he grew up with a working mom. So he was like, if you want to work, I support it. If you want to stay home, we can make that work for our family as well. And so that was sort of my choice. And I was quickly pregnant again with my second child. They're a year apart. And during that time, I was doing a lot of soul searching. I think we don't always talk a lot about how much a woman's life changes, her career, everything when you welcome in a new child. And so I think I was just struggling a little bit with missing my classroom, the creativity, the students, the passion that I had there, but also just really wanting to raise my children and be present with them and be effective as a mother. And so during that journey, I had come to him to talk about a passion project I had, which was to start my own company, Kie Kate Couture, a place where you could go for women and children. I was going to use my sewing skills to create and design and make things. And this was in 2008 when Pinterest and Etsy and those type of platforms were becoming more popular. And the recession was hitting pretty hard for our family. My husband's industry got hit pretty hard. So we were trying to kind of figure out whether it made sense to go back into teaching and put the kids into daycare. And I wanted to start this business. And I said, listen, I don't know that it's going to pay the bills, but I feel like it's going to be a great hybrid for me. I can be home with the kids, yet I can have a creative outlet for my mind. And so he was like, whatever you need, let me know. I'll support you along the way. But he was definitely plenty distracted with the recession and what that looked like for a young family with mortgage and children. So Kie Kate was created in 2008 in September. And I asked my parents for a small investment to start the business, and quickly repaid that back to them within the first, I would say, like 4 months. And I started by doing little craft shows, fashion shows, country club events, still going on now to this day, where you could set up a vendor booth table and showcase what you have. And it grew really quickly. I think in a numbers standpoint, in the first 18 months, my company grew 600%. And I had a retired accountant managing my books. I had started not as a hobby, but in '08, I started legitimately as a business, registered in the state of Illinois, paying taxes, doing everything like I started as I meant to go on. And I would say a year and a half to 2 years in, I started getting the attention of my husband, who was still kind of working his way through a tough economy. And he said, the numbers you're putting up are pretty strong, and I don't know that you're going to outgrow in the current model that you're in. So I think you should definitely look towards a brick and mortar. At the time, I had small children, and I said, I don't know that that's, what would be the best fit. But he said it would mean a lot for our family. You're kind of sitting on a golden egg. You've got a great eye. You've got a great business that you've created. So on your hard days, like lean into me and I'll help, but otherwise I'm going to support you in this. And we opened up the brick and mortar 3 years to the month, September of 2011. And then from there, when we first opened, our model was probably half women's, half children's. As the years have gone on, the children's portion of my business has consolidated down. The women's part has grown. We've just kind of followed market trends and listened to our customers and what their needs are. And in 2018, the same month that I welcomed in my fourth child, we expanded into a second storefront side by side. We had just outgrown our space, but we loved our location, and we that proved to be a great fit for us in expanding our business and getting to our next sort of goal. And then, of course, as everyone knows, came COVID, which was forced a lot of challenges to all small business owners. And we quickly pivoted at that point to an online storefront, an online boutique, e-commerce platform, which we had been trying to launch several times, but unsuccessfully, just with the way different point of sale systems are created and the cloud-based, and running our store has always been very busy, lots of foot traffic. So trying to reconcile your inventory with that. And we found a system that was going to work really great as this hybrid. My son at the time, who was in sixth grade, helped me launch the platform. That has made for some really good conversations over the years. But we launched the website in 2020, and our company doubled. And we are just continuing to try and kind of chase that trend of what's been happening there.
Yep. And I'm now in the moment going back through these conversations we've had over coffee over years of time. I remember you talking about, the house was becoming sort of overwhelmed with, people's orders and clothes and, all that kind of thing. And then you were doing these parties at country clubs. And then I remember the pivot to the retail side. I remember even before 2020 having the conversation on the pros and cons of an online presence. How would that work? All the things that you just brought up in terms of, managing the inventory and all those kind of things. And then, just seeing, your success continue to evolve over the course of time. And that's sort of thematically what I want to get into, because I think that there's just a lot of lessons learned along the way that I've been an observer of, that I think that will be great to click on a little bit. So, the first one I think of is just continuous improvement, right? So over all these years, you always seem to have found a way to reach your audience, right? In different ways, but also with you staying committed to a standard of excellence, right? So today even, as you've gone more video, social content and stuff like that, it's well thought out, you know what I mean? It's well done, you know what I mean? You've thoughtfully, gone through how you do what you do. But that is totally different from the earliest days where you were operating out of the house and you were doing small parties and events at country clubs. Just along that way, there's been so many evolutions that have helped you move forward. So when you think about innovation and your commitment to your business, over the years, how has that evolved, right? And there might be these pivotal moments where you were I have to make a decision. I need to stop doing, the country club things, or I need to start doing more of the online presence, video stuff. I'm just curious, that sort of evolution. Talk me through that.
Sure. Well, to reference, I can remember an important conversation I had with you, and I want to say if you started Third Road in 2015,
yes,
it had to have been right around that time, 2014, 15, 16. I had done in 2016, I did the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Program.
Yes.
So we met either before, during, or after that. But one of the things you said to me that really stuck with me was, when are you going to decide that you've arrived at a point where you don't have to do the events off campus, let's call it, where you're packing up and heading out to these shows to market and sell? that you've grown your business to the point that you can just hone in on your brick and mortar and not have to do that. And it really did feel like, because that's how I grew my following and my customers, that I couldn't walk away from that, even when I was at a point where it wasn't worth my time per se, like in a lucrative monetary way, to be gone from my family at night doing these events. I still felt like so grateful for these businesses or schools or organizations that had included me or requested me. I always, the people pleaser, the saying no. When do you feel like you can say no? And, COVID, I think, was a time where your priorities became very aligned, where you decided these are the yeses, these are the nos. This is where I'm going to, even people felt that maybe in their own social lives or their family lives or educationally. So COVID was a pivotal time for us, but even more so before that, after my third child was born in 2014, we had the polar vortex. And it was an unseasonably cold winter where Amazon Prime became everybody's best friend, and people were having everything delivered to their homes because no one was going out during this January, February, March season in Chicago. And that was a difficult time when you had all this inventory rolling in, but no one coming in like you needed. That was a time where I remember feeling like there has to be a different way. We need to figure out a different way to reach our audience. We've always been very committed to our social media presence. And, whether you like or dislike social media when it comes to business, it's a very powerful tool that I don't think should ever be ignored. I've had to get out of my own way a lot of times. Like I've told you, I'm not super comfortable in front of the camera, but I've had to get over that and just think about maybe that it's loved ones that are watching me or listening to me, or my customers that are supporting my business. I can't hide away from that. I have to give them what they want. So being able to take a stronger hold on that part of my business has been a huge improvement. And there's a lot of things you can outsource in a business or delegate. And then there are other things you really have to do on your own, for yourself on your own.
Yeah. We talked about that a little bit in the past. It's like the conundrum of every founder, myself included, yourself included, everybody included, is how do you get the business to operate, without you being there, right? And there's always going to be a piece of you and your personality and the culture you've created and things like that has to be sort of connected with that business, right? And it's the same for me as it is for you. But that journey of like, how do we make it so that my time is best utilized, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are the things that I can spend my time in that have the greatest impact on our people, on our clients, and everything that we're trying to accomplish. Like the more and more of a course of time, as responsibilities are coming at you, really being able to, refine the list of things that you say you're going to be doing is key, I think. And particularly as you continue to grow, as we continue to grow too, I've had to take a more conscientious approach to being like, hey, my brain can only be split in so many ways. So let's build our team around us that's going to help us be successful, but also know that we need to be dedicated in everything that we're doing. So
I think there's that saying, like, the universe gives you what you can handle, and it's a humbling experience. But being blessed with 4 children, I have to prioritize certain things. And I know at the end of the day, there's always more money that can be made, and there's always more work that can be made. But I try to strike up the best balance I can between really enjoying the time I have with my family and being with them, and then also working. So I think along the way, there's been carrots dangled, like, let's open another store, like, come check out this location. For me, I don't react very quickly and make decisions, really impulsively. I really try to vet out the pros and cons as a business owner. And I also can recognize what my gifts and talents are and what are challenges for me, and like lean into, what I'm best at. And then if it's a challenge, who would be better at it? And I love to lean into my teaching background, where, what is the saying? I always get it wrong. I'm horrible at these things, but like, fish for someone, feed them for a day, teach them to fish, feed them for life.
Yeah.
Did I get it right?
Give someone a fish they can eat for a day. Teach a person to fish they can eat for a lifetime.
So I am more of the teacher. Like, if I can, help people learn the process, the culture, the mission, and they can help become part of this family and grow my business, I feel like I'm a more effective leader in that way, rather than thinking that I'm the only one that knows how to do all things and I do them the best way. I'm a sort of done, not perfect kind of personality, and being divided out so many different ways. I'm very appreciative of everyone that kind of comes in. I don't micromanage. It's like they give it their all.
Yep.
We're in good company.
Yeah. Interesting. We've been doing internally, we've been doing a little bit more research on our side just to, crystallize some of our messaging too around, Third Road and why we're doing it, who we're doing it for, whatever. But there's an interesting statistic that we came across, which was 47% of the jobs in the United States are created by businesses with less than 500 employees. And the percentage of businesses with less than 500 employees is something like 99.5%. It's like a crazy number. And so most people, when they think about, smaller businesses, they think, the Apples, the Nvidias, the, Googles, sort of rule the day. But it's really interesting when you peel back the layers to know that as a business owner, you're creating jobs, you're creating opportunities for people. And that's something that I don't take lightly. I mean, I take a lot of pride in the fact that I've created opportunities for us, and I'm sure them, right, in their careers. And then, I'm sure you feel the same way. Yeah.
And we work with all ages. I mean, my 5-year-old loves to come to work, but more so many women that are in high school and in college, post-college, and that's a different generation than myself, women my age that are working there. Kie Kate kind of lends itself to all ages. Like my mom and my mother-in-law love shopping there, women my age, their grandchildren, my children. So it's really a neat place where there's just a lot of different viewpoints, opinions, kind of keeps me young. I don't know. I love when I look back at all the women that have been inspired or learned something or started off with a really strong set of skills before they're heading out into the workplace.
Yeah.
And women tend to stay with Kie Kate for a really long time, which I think is a huge testament to maybe the culture and environment and experience that they're having there.
Yeah, that's great. So second theme I wanted to hit on was perseverance.
Mm-hmm.
You've hit on some of the notes that I immediately kind of thought of, like the decision to go to brick and mortar retail, expansion of brick and mortar retail, online, COVID. I mean, COVID was so interesting in many different ways in terms of the adapting and things like that. But where it's very easy to give up. It's a portion of the story of why so many small businesses fail is that they don't have the perseverance to grind through the hard times, right? You got to ride the highs and dig in on the lows, right? Because the lows are definitely coming, right? So for you, especially, wanting to be there for your family too, and wanting to balance those times when those hard times come, it's like a double whammy, right? Because in COVID, for example, you got to work twice as hard. You got to use that extra muscle. So how has that journey been for you in terms of how have you been so dedicated through those challenging times to kind of grind through it? What are those motivating factors for you?
Well, I think part of it is when I look back at my upbringing, I grew up with entrepreneurs. I grew up in a hardworking family. So my mom grew up in Madison, and her dad was in tool and die, and her mom opened up Millie's Pancake Shop in the 1950s. And so growing up with that restaurant as part of our experience really taught us a lot. But my dad also grew up with nothing on a farm in Central Illinois, and he went on to go to college and become a physical therapist and built his own business. So I had a very comfortable life, but I was made to feel made to feel grateful and respectful of everything that was being done for us. And we had to work. We weren't handed things, but also had great things too. So there was a nice balance there. I think my parents did a really nice job of instilling some of that. I also was a middle child. So I think whenever I was told no, I didn't like it. So I figured out a way to make things happen for myself. And so sometimes I look at being a business owner is like, I don't really look at someone else has to fix this or do this for me. It's like up to me. And what I loved is that no matter how much I put in, I receive out. I would say like one of the most frustrating things when you're a teacher is that you can work a really long day and you can do a really great job, but like, how is it incentivized, or awarded when you work in different other sectors and there's bonuses, whether they're monetary or a rewards trip or something else. It's hard. Like really when you're a teacher, it's passion and it's intrinsic and it comes from within. But I do realize that I like extrinsic motivators also. Like I like when I put in a lot of hard work, I see it on the other side of that. So kind of getting to know your personality, like you don't know all things when you're 16, 20, 28, like you're learning as you go. And the more you get to know yourself and get comfortable with that. But secondly, having a really strong support system is key. I can never, ever sit here and pretend that Kie and Kate is a result of just me and my hard work. I mean, besides my team at Kie and Kate, my husband is involved in my business and really he's a more macro guy and I'm more micro. He's a little bit more risky where I'm a little bit more conservative. So having like that balance and a partner and a support system, like you can do things, you can create things, and even just having like a good network of confidants and sort of like a panel or a board that you can vet ideas through. So they can tell you like you're making a huge mistake or that wouldn't be a wise investment or like you should really dig into this or lean into this more. So kind of being able to trust the people around you that have your best interests at heart and want to see you succeed. I definitely feel like in my 40-something years, I've created that community of people. And so I feel more confident making decisions. I mean, there were times along the way where I definitely felt a little more anxious or unsure, but also doing programs like the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Program, I learned what I was really good at, and I got to know what I needed to do better at. So, education is important. I don't feel like you can ever stop learning. I don't ever sit back and think I have it all figured out or I've arrived. I'm constantly challenging myself to like overcome the next hurdle, whatever that looks like.
Yep. I was actually going to double click on the program too, because somebody might be listening in that's like, what is that? So can you talk a little bit about the program and,
Goldman Sachs?
Yeah. Who it was designed for and, what was your experience coming out of it?
It was recommended to me from another business owner. So my understanding, and this is like layman's terms and very loose, it could be somewhat inaccurate, but in 2008, when the recession hit, the government bailed out the banks like Goldman Sachs, right? And so Goldman Sachs decided that they wanted to have, small businesses are like the backbone of America. And so Goldman Sachs wanted to give back like a philanthropic arm to small businesses in America. So they partnered with Babson College out of Boston, who has the top entrepreneurial program in the country. And they said, we will fund it and we'll employ city professors. So I went down to Harold Washington in the city, but there's different sectors of this all over the country in different cities. And there's even a satellite program that's online. But you apply to the program. It's like an application process. You have to qualify under 5 different criteria. If you meet those criteria, you fill out the application, you get brought in for an interview. And if you get chosen, you're part of a cohort of about 25 to 30 other business owners. And it's considered 100 hours in the classroom and 100 hours out of the classroom. So I liken it to like a mini MBA. It was 4 months long. I was down in the city every Friday from like 8 a.m. till 6 p.m. and then had tons of homework to do in between. But it took you through, I want to say maybe 12 modules, all the components of owning your own business. And I was sharing this cohort with a graphic designer, an architect, a plumbing company, you name it, a human resources company. It could be a management company, a consulting company, a furniture company. Everyone came from different walks. But what you realized when you sat there was that we all have similar challenges or nuances. They just look different. And so it was like the first time you felt like as a business owner, you sometimes feel like you're out on your own, like you're flying in the wind by yourself, and you felt like you were in a big hug. Like I've got this support network of colleagues, and we all just got to know different parts of our business and we all helped. It's like that whole saying again, I'm going to get it wrong, but like tide rises, ships rise,
Rising tide,
lift all ships.
Lift all boats, right.
You're going to get them all right.
Yeah.
So I'm not good with song lyrics either, but so it was great because I think going up to that point, I didn't necessarily want to open a brick and mortar, but it was important for my company. But I had like days where I was unsure. And then after that, I was like, I've got this and I've got goals that I want to hit and I know what I need to get there. And I felt like a less of the like imposter syndrome or insecurities that you sometimes can have. Like I some days would be like, I didn't get a degree in business. My degree is in early childhood education and psychology. And so, I don't know certain things like financial things, forecasting, whatever. And so I got to know those things.
But you earned your MBA with real life experience, 16 years in, you've, I'm sure, learned a ton that couldn't be taught in the classroom,
Yes. Now that I've worked with some college interns, I feel like you don't necessarily need a college degree for all things. Like they're not teaching you everything. There's still a major lack of experience.
In terms of what's next, I mean, you've kind of hit on this, like, and I don't mean it to be like it's sort of a pressure question, you have to have an answer kind of thing. But like if you dreamed out a little bit, what would be a next evolution without committing to anything? Like where do you feel like it could go for you?
I actually love the question. It doesn't scare me or intimidate me. And actually, I think it's important as a business owner for your team to know where you're planning on taking it, that it's not just this like daily grind and hit these weekly goals. So I've talked about it even with my staff of realistically, what does life look like for Kie and Kate? And my oldest two children are junior and senior in high school. And so, if I'm being realistic, like there's a bit of a pause on like big growth that I want for Kie and Kate. When I see big growth, sometimes I look at it and say more money, more problems. And you can only, like you said, split your brain so many ways. So I want to see my oldest two off to college. Then I'm going to have a bit of a break before my younger two children are in those years of high school. And so I'd love to see in 3 years down the road, I really grow the online platform. I feel like I haven't even scratched the surface of the capability of what my online platform can do. I don't do paid marketing ads. Like there's just so much there. But with that scalability, there needs to be, decisions that are made operationally, and those are big money decisions. So, I want to keep that experience at Kie and Kate is that like Cheers, real neighborhood feel. So the scalability has to look different when you're looking at your online. I am definitely not interested in more locations for Kie and Kate because Kie and Kate feels like another baby or child for me. And I really love how well it does. And I know that we can grow it that way. But again, to me, with my 4 children and the life and work balance and quality of life that I want, that's not in the cards for me. And I'm very upfront with my staff about that. I love our team and I want to just grow our online.
Very, very good. Clarity is king, as you know, just, giving people a safe space to work in, while also knowing that you're, rowing in the same direction and common goal, like just for people to know where they are, where you're going and what position they're in and all that kind of thing. And I'm not surprised to learn at all that you have high amounts of retention among your staff, particularly in the industry that you're in. Because I think, I've known you for forever. So I know the kind of climate and culture that, you bring and that you genuinely care about people. You are, even if you're a self-admitted people pleaser, it's just because you're a good person and good people like to work together, So that's great. I mean, and it's good that you're, their leader and, tell them directionally where you're headed. And I think the online opportunity is great, So anyway, more to come, and I'm excited to hear about it and see it coming in the next years after the kids are in college. If someone wants to learn more about Kie and Kate, like what are the channels to best reach you guys on?
Sure. I didn't even touch upon this, but it's called Kie Kate because it's my oldest daughter's name and my name. It's our nickname. So my oldest is 17. I started the company 16 years ago. Her name is Kylie Rose. It's a Gaelic last name on my husband's side of the family. He said, if we have a daughter, can we name her after my grandma, Rosemary Kylie, and we'll name her Kylie Rose. So we call her Kai for short. My real name's Katie. Everyone calls me Kate for short. So Kie Kate. It's spelled K-I-E, like pie. So Kie and Kate is our website, www.kieandkate.com. We are on Facebook. We're on Instagram. We do live sales every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. on all channels. We have a free app through the App Store. So app, web, Facebook, Instagram. We do an hour presentation, new arrivals, fit videos. We just kind of connect with the community. It's like our own little show. It's like a little reality show for some people. I shouldn't always have a microphone and a camera in my face, but I think maybe sometimes that makes for good viewing because I can, poke fun at myself quite a bit.
It shows your authenticity and
yes, I mean, my passion is not selling you something. That is not my passion, but it comes with the territory. So if I can help bridge a gap. I know there's a lot of women out there that hate shopping. So if I can make that, part of life more comfortable or more fun, we love styling people. I like things to be somewhat affordable. I always joke I have a champagne taste on a beer can budget. So I do like to knock the myth that it's a boutique. It's not this unattainable, price point. It's very approachable. We have a brick-and-mortar store in Elmhurst, Illinois, so you can come visit us in store. You can visit us online. Those are probably the best ways to reach us.
Good deal. Well, this has been really great. Like I said, I'm not to belabor it, but been following your journey for a long time, and I know there's just been an incredible amount of perseverance, innovation, not getting stopped. And I think that, fellow entrepreneurs will appreciate that. And, my hope is obviously that it, this is a helpful medium for you as well in terms of, reaching more of an audience as well. But appreciate you taking the time to come and chat. However, you're not done yet because we've got final 3 questions. These are just for fun. There's no right or wrong answers. We can modify as appropriate. But the first question is this: top 3 rock and roll bands of all time. And you can modify your answer to be just your 3 favorite artists or whatever you want. Make the question yours. Explore the space here a little bit.
So you're going to love this. I like that you did highlight some things to me before the show. And of all the questions that you mentioned that you were going to ask, this one was the scariest for me.
Fair enough.
So, this, I'm a dancer. I was on the Palms dance team. I played a lot of sports in high school, but I like the beats in music. I like to dance. Yep. So I don't always know who the artist is or what the name of the song is. I just know I like that song and play it again. So I called my husband and said, who are my favorite 3 rock and roll bands or who are my 3 favorite artists? And he goes, you're hilarious. My whole family loves music. They love live music. They take me to concerts. I have fallen asleep in a Jay-Z concert.
Wow.
I've also sat down and gotten tired in an Eric church. I just don't have a lot of stamina, but we love country music at our house. We find it when we were raising young kids who are lyrical geniuses. It makes a lot of sense to throw on country because there's not a whole lot of horrible things that happen in country music that you don't want your young kids exposed to. So I would say maybe Morgan Wallen's one of our favorites. We've been to his concert. We love him. I also love U2. My husband and I went and saw him at the Sphere in Vegas, and that was pretty incredible. So going back to U2, the Beatles, some of those songs, love Tracy Chapman, and that brings me back to my college days. So I love the remake that's been made with her song Fast Cars. And then lastly, Pearl Jam, some of the classics. I knew a lot of good lyrics to 311.
I was gonna say
my brother was more into Metallica and hard rock, but my husband Steve loves music, and so do all my kids, and they create playlists on any vacation we go on, and so we're always singing and smiling, and I'm always butchering the words, which you can probably get the gist of that after all of my is it euphemisms that I can't quite get correctly, but yeah, I love music.
Yeah, that's a good it's a good list. And for somebody that didn't know if they had 3, you had 4.
Okay.
So just want to say A plus. Okay, which annual holiday is the best one? And before I always say this, I'm always surprised a little bit at what people's response is. So I'm excited to hear your answer.
So from a retail standpoint, everyone's going to tell you it's all fourth quarter. I mean, it is so exciting to create events and promotions around Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. And that's like everybody's bread and butter when you're in retail. It brings people out. They're entertaining more. They're getting together. So there's more reasons to make purchases. So if we're talking like brass tacks numbers, like those 3 holidays are really good to me for my business, for revenue. But they've become my least favorite because I am absolutely crushed by Christmas Day. I mean, I am barely keeping an eyeball open. And like for a girl that loves like decorating and entertaining and cooking and all of those things, it is very hurried and rushed. I feel like in my retirement, I am going to adore those holidays. But now it's like in my personal life, maybe the 4th of July, because that signals like time together for me with family. Maybe we're at a lake house. We're just enjoying it. Life's a little bit quieter in retail in the summer. So my personal and professional answers are definitely different.
Perfectly acceptable. I love it. All right, last question. If you weren't doing what you're currently doing for work, what is a completely unrelated career that you can see yourself doing and thriving in and all that stuff? We talked about teaching, obviously. We talked about, even venturing into kind of social work and things like that, but like it could be anything.
My girlfriends like to joke that I'm kind of a jack of all trades. And I totally love cooking. I love feeding my family, like the people pleaser in me, if everyone's like well fed and happy around me. So I find a lot of stress relief and chopping things. I love meal prepping and chopping with a knife.
Halloween is approaching.
Throw on a good playlist and get in the kitchen and kind of everyone scatters and gets lost and I can like cook a good meal and then everyone's like, Mom, that tasted so good. So I definitely enjoy that like as a hobby. But I love traveling. You know, when you work as hard as you do, and I've said this to my husband, like I have to see like a goal at the finish line. Like I have to know I'm coming up for air and I'm not just grinding and grinding. And my dad was really good about that. He definitely enjoyed time off at spring break, at summer break, at winter break, and we always did something as a family. So I kind of live for those moments when our family of 6 can get together. So I would totally be a travel agent and go take trips to like learn what, and then I like sales. So I'd sell it to people like, let me design an amazing trip for you. And I had a really great travel agent recently that put together this awesome trip to Alaska. And we all had the best time. So I would go into like a travel agent thing. I love interior design and like making your home super cozy and I don't know, a cooking channel. And I'd make plenty of mistakes, so it would be entertaining because I'm perfectly imperfect.
So you have plenty of channels to pursue if the retail operation needs a break, so to speak. But yeah, we'll look forward to your cooking show for sure, and I'll call you if we need a travel agent. But no, it's great. Well, thank you so much. Like I said, I think people are going to get a lot out of conversation. I hope you've had a good time just kind of reflecting back on your time as an entrepreneur. And it's great to see you, obviously. And I think this is going to add a lot of value. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.